Hello, my name is Jose Rodriguez Duran. Today I will be discussing one of the most significant battles in Mexican history. A day to remember and is celebrated throughout Mexico and other countries like the US. The Battle of Puebla, also known as Cinco de Mayo or the 5th of May. This was a conflict between the countries Mexico and France. I will discuss what sparked the feud between these two countries, how it unfolded, and the outcome of this conflict. I'm a huge history person, and this is one of my favorite wars and battles. So sit down, relax, and let me tell you one of the greatest underdog stories. It was 1861. Mexico at this time was in shambles, considering Mexico just finished coming out of a few wars, civil wars to be exact. Not only had Mexico borrowed money from three major countries, Great Britain, Spain, and of course, France. Mexico not yet paying its debt, France, along with Great Britain and Spain, sent forces to Mexico to collect the debt. Following a period of political instability and the Civil War, Mexican President Benito Juarez announced a suspension of debt payments to European powers in 1861. In response, France, Britain, and Spain signed the Convention of London so that Mexico could resume payments. The three nations sent a combined naval and military force to Veracruz, Mexico, in January 1862 to demand payment. Britain and Spain eventually withdrew after making separate agreements with the Mexican government. However, France had other plans for Mexico. Napoleon III, ruler of the French Empire at this time, wanted to invade Mexico for numerous reasons. Some say on the pretext of debt collection, but the real reason was Napoleon III's desire to expand French influence and establish a monarchical empire in the Americas. He capitalized on Mexico's political instability and the ongoing U.S. Civil War to invade and install his puppet emperor Maximilian I. You see, the U.S. is one of Mexico's biggest allies, and while the U.S. is busy with the Civil War, because at this time the U.S. was at a civil war, the American Civil War, there was nobody to intervene with the French. So, as you would expect, on December 8th, 1861, France gave Mexico a big Christmas gift, the gift of a war invasion. So the war has begun. French troops marched right into Veracruz, Mexico. The initial major military engagement took place when General Charles de Laurentis advanced on Puebla in early March 1862. After the initial landing, French forces expanded their influence around Veracruz before beginning their march toward Mexico City. The French main goal was to take the capital of Mexico, which of course is Mexico City. One of the battles was the Battle of Las Cubres on April 28, 1862, where the French forces advanced through the Alcingo Pass and encountered the Mexican Republican Army under General Ignacio Zaragoza. Holding the high ground at the Alcingo Pass, they were engaged by a larger French invasion force under Charles de Laurentis. The French took the initial trenches. Zaragoza strategically withdrew his troops to the place where they could stand off the French, the city of Puebla. If the French army wanted to get to Mexico City, they would have to get through Puebla first. If the French army wanted to get to Mexico City, again, they would have to get to Puebla, where Mexican troops were waiting. Now, when I say underdog story, I mean a real underdog story. Mexican troops were outnumbered greatly. It is estimated that the French army had around 6,000 to 8,000 men, while Mexico only had 4,500 to 4,700 men. Not to say Mexico's weaponry and resources were not very good. The French soldiers were better equipped with modern rifles that could outgun the Mexican armies, more untwigged Mexican rifles, not to mention Mexico's troops were weakened from the last civil war, and some soldiers were highly inexperienced. But Mexico had someone who would not go down without a fight. General Ignacio Zaragoza was no ordinary man. He was a great leader and general. Finally, the day came. In 1862, May 5th, General Ignacio Zaragoza was with his troops. One last message. General Ignacio gives a speech as follows. Today, you're going to fight for a sacred object. You're going to fight for the homeland. And I promise you that on this day, you will conquer a day of glory. As noon comes by, so do the French troops. Overconfident, they strike. The French army began marching toward the city of Puebla, expecting to overwhelm Zaragoza's forces. The weather turned bad, and it started to rain heavily, turning the ground to mud and slowing their advance. Zaragoza placed his men strategically on the hills near Forts Loreto and Guadalupe. He also had some cavalry in reserve and local peasants helping with supplies. The French army tried to advance up the city, but Mexican forces came gunning them down. After a counterattack by the Mexican soldiers, the French army was overwhelmed and forced to retreat completely toward Orizaba. In the evening, the French lost about 500 to 600 soldiers. The Mexicans lost fewer than 100. Against all odds, the Mexican army had won. Ignacio Zaragoza said after the battle, "Las armas nacionales se han cubierto de gloria," which translates to, "The national arms have been covered with glory." The victory at Puebla didn't end the French invasion, though. France did come back with more troops the following year and eventually captured Mexico City in 1863. The war lasted till 1867, when at some point France managed to put a leader in charge, Archduke Maximilian. But again, in 1867, Mexican troops kicked the French right out of Mexico. The Battle of Puebla became a powerful symbol of Mexican resistance and unity. It shows that even a small, poorly equipped army could defeat one of the strongest powers in the world, starting from owing three major countries money to a full-on war with one of the greatest empires in the world. And finally, not letting them take charge. In conclusion, hope you enjoyed this, and remember, Viva Mexico!